So today we're going to go over our BTR Trinity intake manifold package for LS7 Corvettes, and just want to start going through what you will get in the kit, which obviously will be BTR intake manifold, the hardware bag it comes with. You're going to receive 60-pound fuel injectors, the BTR fuel rail kit, an LS3 style map sensor. LS3 map sensor will require tuning, everybody. A couple fittings. You will get a throttle body extension harness because you will flip your throttle body for the install. Also a map sensor extension harness. You're going to put the map sensor in the back of the intake versus your stock intake, which is up front. We supply needed fuel lines. And that's about it. You're going to want to purchase separately a Nick Williams 102 throttle body. Start with getting the stock intake off the car. So just starting to pull off this stock intake manifold. It's all pretty self-explanatory, but basically you'll pull off your whatever you got going on for an air intake. You have your cts-v hose. Pull that off, it can stay on the valley. Your injector harness, we're going to leave the injectors right here in place. You always want to disconnect your negative battery terminal before you start doing this, because we will be taking the battery cable off the alternator just to flip it up out of the way. Injector harnesses, your 10 intake bolts. You'll have your booster line, also your smaller MPP vacuum line for the exhaust. So the trickiest part about getting this stock guy off, you're gonna have to get the bolts out of the holes, pull it forward as much as you can, don't force it, just get a couple inches. And to get these lines out, you're gonna have to reach back in here. I'll be able to show you once I have it off. You have to reach back in here and unplug your oil pressure switch. These connectors, this one you just pull up, the other has more of like the release push button style. Once that's off, you get back there and you can lift these hoses up and over top of your oil pressure sensor. Work them out from under here. Not really hard, but if you got everything out and wondering why you can't rip it off, that's probably what got you jammed up. Alright, when you get the intake out of the box, a couple things you'll have to do before you can put it on the car. First thing is going to be unbolt your runners. There should just be two of the Allen head bolts holding it in here. And you will have to put the O-rings on it. You'll have two sets of O-rings, a larger set and a smaller set. Larger ones will be for your runners here. Alright, once you get all your runner bolts back in with the blue Loctite, go ahead and torque them to 89 inch-pounds. And then we can put our intake O-rings in. I like to use a dab of grease. Not that big of a dab. In the top and bottom here. Keep those O-rings from falling out when you're setting it down on the engine. Alright, all your O-rings in, move on to fittings. Your large elbow is going to be for that brake booster line in the back. also need a barb fitting that it will come with. This will go down to your valley for your breather. And we'll use a smaller barb on the opposite side for your evap purge valve. LS3 map sensor with a supplied bolt. Alright, so this car already has aftermarket mufflers and no longer uses the MPP valves. So I'm not going to set this intake up for it, but if you are using stock mufflers and want to retain your valves, you will have to drill and tap right in this back area here for an 1/8 inch MPT fitting, and just get yourself a basic fitting with a barb like that, and then you can go ahead and retain your MPPs. A lot of people don't use them, or like I said, like this guy has already changed his mufflers. Get it sat down. Get your map sensor extension harness plugged in. With these map sensors, you can plug them in backwards. You want to make sure you got that plug on the right direction. We're going to run underneath the intake because we have plenty of room under there now. Out towards the front here. Probably right out through this, between this front runner. You still need to fish your brake booster line just the way it was routed from the factory, down underneath the engine harness. Slide it back in. It is snug to the firewall, so, but it fits. Go. You might have to play around with your fittings on the back to clear the firewall, but you'll see once you try and put it on. I ended up running the alternator battery cable underneath, just like we did with the map sensor harness. Keep as much clean as round you can around the fuel rails. It'll just look nicer when it goes back together. So go ahead and get your intake bolts in. Also blue Loctite, torqued 89 inch-pounds. Alright, onto the fuel rails. LS7 and LS3 style injectors take these shorter. You have 3 options of brackets here. Use a short bracket. Go ahead and get all your fittings. Your 8AN fittings will go in the front for your crossover fuel line. You will use a 6AN fitting for the rear of the passenger side rail. And for the back of the driver's side rail, you will use the supplied plug. You can get your short fuel rail brackets installed. They have a little angle on them. You'll see it's pretty obvious which way they're supposed to go. And also blue Loctited, torqued 89 inch-pounds. Injectors, lube them up. Take your time with that, but they drop in fairly effortlessly. Use the supplied bolts and nuts to secure the rails to the bracket. And they fit really well. Alright, got the fuel lines bolted on, the injectors all in. Move on to your fuel lines. First thing you have to do is take the Russell hard line fitting that'll adapt your factory hard line to AN. Doing this job, you will need one of these little 3/8 fuel line disconnect tools that you could literally buy them everywhere. Any parts store will have them. Amazon, of course. And it just clips around that hard line and disconnects those fingers. Take your new Russell fitting, slip right over that line, and thread the retainer in. So you'll take your longer 6 AM fuel line supplied, take the 45-degree end of it behind the intake here, kind of fish it down, grab it with the other hand. I would start with the 45-degree side because it's a little tricky to get that lined up and started. You really have to have that fitting perfectly straight for it to start. All right. It's going to cross right underneath the intake. You don't need to try and break them off, just nice and snug. Alright, after that you move on to your vacuum lines, starting with your ventilation line that goes from the valley up into the intake. For this you have to grab about a foot of 3/8 hose. Grab it anywhere, any part store. You can take a number 2 Phillips head screwdriver, go into that valley fitting, and you'll be able to turn it to whatever angle there. Works a little bit better. And you're just gonna push that hose on. We'll do a soft loop so it doesn't want to kink. And there you go. So to get these quick connect lines out of this nylon line, you can just slice it with a razor blade or warm it up with a lighter, pull it right out. Again, you'll have to grab some rubber hose if you plan to keep your purge valve system. This is 5/16 non-reinforced hose, the thinner stuff. Run it right where the stock line ran, underneath the fuel injectors essentially. Get that clip back on to the line at the firewall. Take your other side of your fitting here, just set it on there kind of for mock-up. And just like that, crossover line will come right underneath the intake. Just like that. Put that under there. Alright, at this point you can install your new Nick Williams 102 throttle body. You'll use the gasket supplied with the BTR intake and the bolt supplied with the throttle body. We will be installing this opposite direction of how it is from the factory. The only thing you should have to do is gently push down this hard coolant line. And it is a tight fit. Behind your power steering reservoir. You might have to give that bracket just the slightest tweak. Like to get a corner started. Throttle body. work that coolant line. I have to give that bracket just the slightest tweak. Just enough so you have clearance to get your throttle body plugged in. Don't have to go crazy. Play with it. And you get plenty of clearance there. And just putting your bolts in with blue Loctite and torque them to 89 inch-pounds. Now find your supplied throttle body harness extension. Connect that to factory plug. Plugged in. That's it. Move on to your breather lines here from the valve cover to your dry sumping tank, and these will actually still snap right here into place pretty nicely. Same goes with your fresh air line. That'll go back to your intake. Again, snap that there. Now zip tie on these lines. That's going to work just fine. So most of you are probably running one of two intakes, either the Haltech like this car or the Veyron. If you have a Veyron intake, it is going to work perfectly with the BTR manifold. Actually, it fits better with the BTR intake manifold than it does with the factory. If you have this big Haltech, it is much tighter running the Haltech. These things are super close, even with stock intake manifolds. You can actually see on the hood liner where it was already rubbing. So it's gonna be worse. This one did sit fairly low. If it's hitting real bad, you'll see actually a little hump in the hood here. Then clearly you know you have some clearance issues. So if you do have clearance issues, you have one or two options. A lot of people just opt to remove this hood liner. Gives them enough room, and also just keeps it from destroying the hood liner. If it does rub, you know, under hard acceleration, your motor's going to lift. It's going to push it into that headliner. So you can, easiest solutions, take that off. If you prefer to try and keep that on, just like you do with the Veyron intake, you can take your marker, trace around this air filter, and go ahead and remove, you know, get in there with a little cutoff wheel, whatever you have, and cut an opening that'll allow that filter to drop down. And that's another option. This one fits pretty good. We're just going to leave it alone. And that's going to pretty much wrap it up for your Trinity intake manifold install. Not too bad. You know, probably a day's worth of work if you don't do it every day like we do. So, let us know if you have any questions. Just a disclaimer, once you get it together, you will need to flash your computer, not only for injectors, but for that map sensor we changed. So reach out to your tuner, whoever that may be, get a revised file, and get that flashed in before you try starting this thing. That's it.